5.5's banners are looking stacked, so it can be hard to decide who to spend your precious Primogems on. So today, I aim to help you decide who to spend your Primogems on. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. Quick note, this video serves as a quick TLDR way for you to know who'll get you the best bang for your particular account. I'll be making more in-depth pros and cons for each individual character coming up this patch closer to their time, and with all of these cool characters coming up, I'm sure you're wondering where you can afford some cheaper Primogems. Good news, Loot Bar is here to help us out. Loot Bar is a splendid service which can offer you cheaper stellar jades compared to the official prices shown in-game. Look at this comparison between the official cost and the Loot Bar cost. New users get a wonderful 8% off, and the prices are up to 23% cheaper compared to the official channel. Loot Bar is a fully saved service and has countless positive reviews, but how does it actually work? Allow me to show you. First, input your UID. That's right, you need no login information whatsoever. Choose your desired package, and then look at that. More Primogems for me. This is all legit since the site uses a VPN, which is how they cheapen the Primogems, and official top-up methods are used. PS5 and Xbox users can also purchase on Loot Bar. Check out Loot Bar today to save on all your gacha needs. Varesa is an interesting case value-wise. Her best installed team would ideally utilize Mavuika as a sub-DPS. That would be Chevreuse Overload, a team which ends up beating up the Xianyun variant of Varesa's teams due to the sheer amount of sub-DPS that the Exalted Pyro Archon is able to provide. This means that she's not actually Xianyun reliant whatsoever, so if you're somebody that has a Chevreuse and a Mavuika, you're more than good to go. Considering that the Fire Cop is going to be on the Cow's banner, you'll easily be able to obtain a copy and run a good team with her. Alternatively, running Xianyun is still absolutely more than viable, because she buffs up Varesa's Fiery Passion plunges to an excellent extent, so you have two extremely strong team options for her. She's also going to become the brand new best Electro DPS. She's really impressive damage-wise, and outclasses all of the rest when you focus solely on that aspect alone. I will say that if you recently pulled for Clorox Bleach, I don't actually think that Varesa is that much of a priority pull for you. Her damage is plenty enough, while still performing excellently in a wider variety of teams, so keep that in mind if the Champion Duelist is a unit that's already in your possession. She's an excellent pickup if you're somebody lacking in good damage dealers, but we're quite oversaturated in the main DPS niche these days, so even if she's really strong, she's far from an absolute necessity. No character truly is. I will add that Varesa does 100% stand out from the rest of the Genshin cast, however, because she has very unique gameplay. No other character has gameplay like her. If you prioritize fun gameplay over meta value, then definitely trial Varesa extensively, because she's the only character in the game to have 3 different bursts. She's also the 3rd plunge DPS that we've gotten since Gaming, and the first 5-star plunge DPS that we've gotten since freaking Xiao, so her gameplay will be a refreshing treat. Teammates on release won't be a problem for her, because her debut banner is going to feature both Iansan and Chevreuse. Because she's a movement-heavy DPS, Iansan's buffing is perfect for her, and the Cop is the go-to unit for Overload teams. She does unfortunately ask for a very contested unit in Mavuika, who is better played as her own main DPS. I'd say that's Varesa's key flaw. You can still play her Overload teams without the honorary Son of Caledon in her teams, of course, but she's a massive plus to those teams, so it's a little rough to not use her there. She doesn't rely on reactions to do her huge numbers, and she'll also be the new best plunge DPS upon her release. Sorry, Melt Gaming fans. A character that's certainly worth your time if you want what she provides, but easily passable if your main DPS roster is already sorted out. Especially if you've already got yourself a Coriander, a unit who is consistently always gaining new team synergies and is keeping up with the meta just fine. A tier in the value rankings for this patch. She's 100% worth your time if you're after a powerful Electro DPS, but when we have so many to choose from these days, she's far from a necessity. S tier is not far-fetched either, but because you'd rather just a main DPS Mavuika, I feel that the top of A tier is a fair ranking. Then we move on to Xianyun, one of my favorite Genshin characters of all time. She's a really solid pull these days if you need what she offers. She's the only character in the entire game that's able to enable plunges for every single main DPS. Her burst offers characters enough jump height so that they're able to plunge easily. This means that units who typically wouldn't utilize plunges are then able to weave them into their rotations. This is a big deal for the likes of C0 Hu Tao. Xilonen will still be a stronger final slot for the team, but playing the Bird Lady means that you're able to enjoy C0 Hu Tao gameplay while experiencing far less clunk. She also saved Diluc, because his damage output is significantly better when he's able to take advantage of plunges. That's because of his huge plunge scalings. She's excellent for vape gaming teams and is excellent for helping Xiao deal more damage against boss targets due to the single target nature of her A4 buff. And that's another thing. Not only does this character offer every unit in the game the ability to plunge, but she's able to buff plunges themselves. She's absurdly fun for exploration in the overworld because of her skill hops. This only becomes better if you manage to pick up her C1, since you get 2 skill charges. Her C2 is also a really nice path to take in terms of high Primogem based investment for your account. I don't recommend it over other prestigious C2s, such as Xilonen's or Lady Farina's, but it's still a good option to take. She can act as a general healer and 4VV holder for your account, meaning that she can be a replacement Jean for those of you who don't have her. The team-wide heals that Xianyun offers are very strong, making her an ideal fanfare generator. In her best insult teams, you're more likely to use 4P Song of Days Past on her due to VV uptime shenanigans. That offers some nifty damage dealt increase. I should mention the fact that her A4's buff only applies to single target is pretty annoying. This means that if you're using an AoE DPS like Xiao, it might be more effective for you to just use Bennett, as his buff will boost the damage dealt to all enemies present, as opposed to only one at a time. This isn't a problem if you have C2 Xianyun, because then you'll kill the enemy so quickly to the point where it won't even matter. But at C0, it's better to stick to using her up against bosses. Plus, if all you need is an animal healer without all of the plunge-based trimmings, then Jean is right there. She's freely selectable each year from the Anniversary Standard Selector. You don't need Xianyun in specific if you want to get a good healer on your account, or a good animal for that matter. We have more than enough 4VV users these days. A tier in the value rankings for this patch. She's still a very valuable pull if you need the specific qualities that she offers, but we have excellent alternatives for many of her teams. Therefore, she's easily skippable as well. A great support to flesh out your account some more if you already have the key supports that this game has to offer. Speaking of key supports, Xilonen. This character is, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the top 3 most valuable units that you can pull for in all of Genshin Impact at the moment. What is there to say that hasn't been said already? This unit is a Kazuha 2 with heals, and considering how good Kazuha is, she was obviously going to turn out to be a good unit. She takes up literally 0 field time as you just fire off some kicks of her, then you're good to go. Her healing is single character, but it's still very strong healing, meaning that she has sublime fanfare synergy. She's able to provide 36 freaking res shred via her skill when it's crowned, on top of 35 to 40% damage bonus depending on whether you're using 4-piece Archaic Petra or 4-piece Cinder City. She fits into almost any team in the game, provided that there's at least 2 non-Geo, Animo, or Dendro units in the comp. Anytime that a team is able to unlock a synergy with a specific unit, it's no surprise that the comp's value quite literally skyrockets. This unit is not to be underestimated in the slightest, and while I know that people hate the prospect of must-pull characters, this unit is genuinely one of the greatest supports in the entire game, and I heavily recommend her. Her damage bonus is entirely front-loaded, and doesn't rely on heals, making it more efficient than a C0 Lady Farina's buffs. But you're using them together most of the time anyway. She's able to act as a Kazuha for Geo DPSs too, offering Geo Res Shred to powerful units such as Navia, which is an absolutely excellent quality to have. This isn't even mentioning how her C2 is really nutty, since it's one of the few forms of HP percent buffing that this game has to offer outside of Yolan C4 and Hydra Resonance. It's a wild buff to characters like Mr. Settle Down! Speaking of which, this woman is able to form the Celestia Killer Novelet team, which even in this Mavuika day and age remains as being one of the most absurdly powerful teams in the game, even if your DJ Cat is only down at C0. That's not to say that it is the most powerful, because that award would go to none other than Mavuika herself. You see, she really wants Fighting Spirit generation in order to cast a nuclear burst of hers, which she wants to do regardless of whether she's being played as a DPS or support. It does a stupid amount of damage, and supportively speaking, it's how she offers a damage dealt increase to the entire team. Xilonen's able to cover for all of the Fighting Spirit generation that the Exalted Pyro Archon could ever want. If you're somebody that pulled from Mavuika but doesn't have a DJ Cat to your name, then this funky blacksmith is genuinely one of the best additions that you could make to your account. Kazuha is still a great unit to this day, and that unit is nearly 5 years old. I don't see why Xilonen wouldn't enjoy the same future. She's as future-proof as a character can get. Peak Patrol Song also allows her to offer greater damage bonus percent buffing than a C0 Lady Farina in total, really exemplifying how strong of a buffer she is. Otherwise, she can abuse Favonius excellently, but that's a given for any support in this game, honestly. SS tier in the value rankings for this patch. She's legitimately one of the best pulls that you can make in all of Genshin Impact. Get her if you don't have her. Whether you're a new or old player, you won't be disappointed in her fantastic performance. Then we move on to a character that was my dearest love for over 4+ years, until Funny Biker Man and Funny Warrior Man came along. That's right, former best boy Venti. Even if he's not my #1 of all time anymore, I still love the guy a lot. So let's yap about him. Sadly, the Abyss has become so boss-centric to the point where it's hard to justify pulling for him anymore. There has been AoE featured content recently, but that was only there to shield Mizuki, a terrible character that needed an easy Abyss in order to feel viable. And while this current reset also has an AoE half, this isn't really the norm anymore as much as it is an exception. Weaker Abysses turn up whenever weaker units release, and Notlon's units have consistently been very powerful and single target-centric damage-wise. I don't expect this small Venti resurgence to last, to be entirely honest with you. Holding 4VV isn't an excellent quality these days anymore, because we have so many options that can do that while offering other qualities, and his grouping is null most of the time in the Abyss. He can restore elemental energy to teammates, which is nice, but then you want to make sure to position yourself correctly so that his burst can absorb the element applied on the enemy. Don't get me wrong, being able to group Lectors is great, and if he absorbs an element that they're weak to, he whittles down their shields very fast. he can group a great chunk of non-robot and non-boss enemies, but grouping just isn't as relevant as it used to be in this game. He's got a decent use case of Kenichi, as he's able to group up enemies so that his pixel blasts are able to hit all enemies consistently, not to mention the constant power application on the enemy for burning. This is a nice modern synergy of his. Otherwise, he's not bad with Mr. Settle Down either, and works with Scaramouche too. So he has some good synergies. The issue is that they tend to be pretty situationally applicable. I'd really only get him if you're a long-term player that's already got a super beefed out roster that wants to fully complete their support roster. Even then, I feel like there's other better supports that you could pull for. His constellations don't do much for him, and I'd unironically recommend getting Elegy over Venti, sadly. He's great in Imaginarium Theater, sure, but I don't want to consider that mode when it comes to pull value because of how easy it is. You can get all of the rewards from that game mode by just brute forcing. Just borrow somebody else's Venti if you really need him for the convenience factor, or just snatch someone else's C6 for an easy clear, which would honestly make more sense. Besides, you wouldn't even be able to use him every theater season. He is excellent for the overworld and for domains 100%. His quality of life factor for all AoE friendly content in the game remains to this day. There's a reason that Hoyoverse can't lean too heavily into AoE in the Abyss these days. Venti would quite literally squash it in half. It's a shame. There were grounds for glazing him before, but I feel like we don't get enough AoE in the Abyss these days. C tier in the value rankings for this patch. He's not bad by any means, but the competition is too dense these days. The real reason that you get him is because he's a peak femboy. That's pretty much it. Bro is still unmatched in that category. I will die on that hill. Iansan is the new Bennett. Need I say more? Her attack buffs are through the roof, she's going to work well for every DPS that moves around, which is a good lot of them, and will finally allow you to have a Bennett on the second half of the Abyss. Yes, everyone, after 5 long years of waiting, Circle Impact is finally over. She's gonna be amazing for Varesa upon her release, and will also be great for characters such as Clorox Bleach. Think about teams such as Coriander Overload, for instance. This is genuinely one of the strongest releases that we're gonna be getting in recent times, and that's saying a lot considering how good recent units have been. There's some minor healing to enjoy here, along with some damage bonus percent buffs both from 4-piece Intercity and her C6. She does benefit from constellations a lot, but Iansan remains an absolute powerhouse down to C0. She's primarily for attack scaling units though. It's a little scary that Hoyoverse is buffing Mavuika of all characters, but okay, Hoyo, you do you. Hopefully we get more support sets soon, because I'm gonna crash out if we keep having to put Cinder City on every single new support that releases. Anyways, she does want you to move, but if the movement she desires is based on the movement of a character's model, then legitimately every attack scaler will be able to use this without issue. SS tier in the value rankings for this patch. Hoyo dropped an absolute bombshell of a kit with this unit. She may not have been a 5-star character, but hey, she absolutely has the kit value of one. 5.5 is genuinely one of the most stacked patches known to man. 3 excellent 5 stars, 1 more niche but still serviceable 5-star, and an insane 4-star lineup on Varesa and Xianyun's double banners. They're hitting us with the main course after 5.4's first half was such a snooze fest. Granted, as for the second half, wallets may be drained after Lady Farina and Rio Beastly's reruns. Good luck on your pulls. Or are you planning to skip? Let me know down below, I'd love to hear your thoughts. As always, I have a ZZZ second channel. Head on over and subscribe if you're interested in some fun, silly ZZ content. I'd also like to mention that I stream on Twitch. I stream once a week every week on Saturday, starting from free PMK time. Come along so that we can play Wuthering Waves, ZZ, and do some other fun stuff together. Hopefully this video was able to tell you which characters would get you the best bang for your Primogem in version 5.5. This has been Juice, signing out, and they chose to run the 2 peakest animal units in the same patch. I will be taking no debate on this.